Hi, I'm David Chow again. I'm doing another YouTube. Today's topic is Singapore success story, the Chinese connection. Okay, interesting title. Singapore success story, the Chinese connection. Okay, you must watch right to the end to find out what I mean. Okay, well, I've seen a lot of YouTube article and sort of produced by a kind of popular, conventional sort of Anglo-Saxon, Western media narrative, and I found the content of the reason for Singapore story is sometimes rather condescending. Condescending is a big word, and patronizing, and show the Western mindset and showing the superior mindset, attitude. So, and they always talk about Singapore's, because it was a British colony before, so they inherited a British legal system, British legacy, and parliamentary democracy, and adoption of English language as a common language, also for the education, from primary school right to the university. English is the medium of language, and they claim that the colonizer or the Western media always say that, because Singaporeans adopted a Western thinking, a Western mindset, and received Western education, like from England, USA, or Australia, and also, of course, they always mention that Singapore as a country is very lucky to be situated, and it has got a very strategic geographical location. I mean, one side Strait of Malacca, and the other side South China Sea. Singapore has got a very natural deep water port, So anyway, and a lot of other things, great infrastructure, efficiency, and everything. But anyway, that's fine. But I found that. But then they never touch on the population itself. Who are the people who live in Singapore? So, I like to offer a different narrative, a different opinion to what they saying. What their analysis, and counter their narrative, sort of heavily promoted by the Western media on Western scholar and so-called experts. Okay, well, I was born in Singapore. I'm from Singapore, so I came here before I finished my high school. I did my civil engineering degree here in Melbourne. I worked many years as a civil engineer, so I now I've settled down here in Melbourne. Melbourne is my home for many years. So I'm sure I'm qualified to make a comment on this. Okay, I got the knowledge, I got the background, and I grew up there, lived there, up to 15 years old. So, so I'm going to give my perspective on why Singapore, come to where she is, and the real success story of Singapore. Okay. Well, I found that the Western media, a lot of YouTube, a lot of so-called experts, they hardly touch on what the Singapore population is. They seem to try to avoid it. Most of the time they generally just say, well, Singapore is multiracial country, consists of Chinese, Malay, Indians, and others. But they never actually explain what the composition is. So I'm going to, it seems that they try to avoid that. It's a bit like you coming, I live here in Australia. It's a bit like you're coming to Australia. I mean, we say Australia is an Anglo-Saxon country, majority of it, maybe 60, 70%. it is a multiracial country, beside the British, English background, Irish, and Italian, Greek, and lately, and Eastern European, and lately in ethnic Chinese population be here for a long time. During the gold rush, 150 years ago. In Victoria and New South Wales. But and besides Chinese, Indian, Filipino, Indonesian, they all settled down. Here in Australia, but predominantly Australia is still an Anglo-Saxon country, and we're talking predominantly, 70%. Well, similar in Singapore. Singapore has been an immigrant country for hundreds of years, settled Malays there, and then during the British colonization, they brought in Indian and a lot of Chinese labor to do the work. So anyway, the population of Singapore nowadays is basically 76% ethnic Chinese, 76%. Okay, about 14% Malays, about 8% Indians. Most of them are Tamil, Tamil Indian, and about 2 or 3% others, Eurasians or something. That's a population. So basically, Singapore is the only Chinese majority country in the world besides China. Obviously, China including province of Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau, which are the special administration zone. So Singapore is the only other country in the world that's got a Chinese majority. Okay. So I think why I say that, because there's a reason why I emphasize that, because it is important in the fact that why Singapore has developed so fast. Okay. So what we're going, I've explained the composition of the country. So that, to me, that is important. And well, let's get to the main point. Well, Chinese culture, like people from China, origins from China, and so-called Confucius, sort of influenced country like Korea, Japan, or China's where Confucianism come from, and also Vietnam, and obviously Singapore. It's 76% Chinese population, plus many other Southeast Asian countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, and Thailand. So a lot of and they with the so-called East Asian characteristic, or say they value education, they value education, and they value hierarchy, of government, and they value respect for the leader. That's Singapore has got that kind of attitude. So we talk about the East Asian people, like Chinese, Korean, and Japanese, and some maybe Vietnamese. They are in school. You can tell that even here in Melbourne, they top the class in science and maths. That's probably I think there's a survey done by the Western press, and the top five countries in the world which is good in science and maths are, the number one is Singapore, and then followed by Hong Kong, South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan, the all Asian country, right? And then after that was maybe Norway, some other country, you know. So there you are. So to me, that because of the characteristic of the people East Asian country, it's not just. I mean, it can't be just because of or Singapore happened to be in a real, strategic geographical location. That's why Singapore is successful. And not only because the government is efficient, corruption free, and safe and all that, but it happened to other countries. Oh, you can't just make an argument saying, well, Singapore adopted an English, British system, legal system, education system. That's why Singapore has become successful. One of the top, has got the highest living standard. But what about South Korea? What about Japan? They haven't adopted English language or British or maybe the political sort of election democracy they have adopted South Korea and Japan. But what about China too? They don't have democratic selection, but still China is now the second biggest economy in the world, and some if based on GDP per person per capita, but if based on PPP, China is already the biggest economy in the world, overtaking USA a few years ago. So anyway, that I think. So I mean the Singapore economic successful story. My point is, of course, it's basically attribute to the hard work of the people, and diligent and the resilience of its people, and its visionary leader, right from beginning. Our Singapore founding father Lee Kuan Yew, he's got a vision, and a long-term vision. It's not. I mean, and that's why Singapore has provided the political stability. Since its founding, it's PAP, People's Action Party, has been in power ever since Lee Kuan Yew came into formed the first government. After it split up from Malaysia in 1965. Yeah, so that is I mean the leadership throughout from Lee Kuan Yew, Lee Hsien Loong, and now Lawrence Wong, and a team of very very capable, talented minister and bureaucrat, that they have created a population of well-educated, skilled workforce, efficiency, productivity, and commitment to excellency and long-term planning. I mean, that is. I mean, I'm not trying to say Singapore is the only Asian country has that kind of success. I mean, South Korea, Japan, even province of Taiwan, Hong Kong, and China, mainland China. I mean, it's pretty evidence with all the infrastructure. Or this country has a tremendous achievement in the living standard. I mean, look at South Korea, Japan, even Taiwan, Hong Kong, and China, and of course Singapore stand out because Singapore has got the benefit of the Chinese connection. That's why I'm coming to it. Okay. Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Singapore benefit tremendously from the economic rise of China. As I explained before, China is the second biggest economy in the world, if you're not already the number one position. Well, may I think when Singapore and China has always has got a close economic relations. Our late Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew visited China 33 times. 33 times since he was prime minister. Okay, and continue later on with Lee Hsien Loong and even Lawrence Wong. So and I believe that Singapore and China last year just upgraded the tie to an all-round or high-quality partnership. So basically, Singapore has got a very strong trade and economic tie with China. It's not just because it is a racial tie too. I mean, most of the 76% ethnic Chinese in Singapore come from Canton and Fujian, and also Hainan. So I mean, if you look back a few generations back, their great parent or great parent come from Canton or Fujian or Hainan Island, So there is a very strong family type to China, even though Singapore is an independent country, just like Australia is an independent country from England, just like United States independent country from England, but so is Singapore. Singapore is its own national identity, but historically and racially, of course, Singapore has got family relation in China. So Singapore has got family relation from people who live in Malaysia or Indonesia. I mean, I have family relation. I have sort of close family in Malaysia, and so as in Indonesia. So even though I was born in Singapore, so I mean basically that's the point I'm saying. Okay. And lately, because the fact that China rise of the living standard is gone up tremendously economically, and reach and they produce a lot of millionaires and even billionaires. I believe that the number of billionaires from last year is just overtaken the number from USA. I mean, China has got more billionaires than USA now. So because of that, for some reason, I mean, a lot of wealthy, mega rich millionaire Chinese want to migrate to countries like Australia, New Zealand, USA, Canada, and Singapore. And I understand they would like to send the children to study in Singapore or migrate to Singapore, set up a family, migration plan in Singapore. If they are mega rich, I mean, obviously, Singapore is the same region. It's only about 5 or 6 hours flight from China, isn't it? From Hong Kong. So and Singapore provide a clean, stable, safe, efficient government and provide a political stability. And a lot of mega rich, millionaire, billionaire Chinese family, they like to send the kids. They like the kids study in Singapore because English is the main medium education language in Singapore. So it's kind of like a common language for Singaporean to communicate. So and they like the kids to be fluent in English. Obviously, they got no problem in Mandarin language. So, and they prefer to come to Singapore because, sorry. They got no problem. I mean, basically, they find that easy for them to settle and fit into Singapore society because majority of the Chinese population in Singapore can speak Mandarin, but other than Cantonese or Hokkien, but most Chinese population can speak Mandarin quite well. So, and they feel at home. They feel at ease. They got no problem fitting in. Okay, so that's the main thing. So well, I mean, lately there's a lot of mega rich billionaire has settled down in Singapore, like Lee Kuan Yew. I think he's quoting the 10 richest people from Singapore. 4 of them are actually were born in China. Lee Kuan Yew, I think his company is called Mineral Biomedical Electronic. I think he's dealing with manufacturing of ventilator, and it got rich during the COVID-19 time. You imagine, and it's got a US $18 billion. Okay, and the second is Zhang Yong, and he's got 19 billion, and he's the boss of Hadilao. Hadilao, so spicy hot pot restaurant. I think last year they had about more than 2,000 Hadilao restaurants all over the world. It's couple here I think 3 in Melbourne. I saw a couple in Singapore. Well, anyway, he settled down in Singapore, bought a house, another 2 young guy called Forrest Lee and Wang Yi, and they both 9 billion. And they have got a company called SEA or e-commerce business, Shopee, and fintech, and a lot of others too. I mean, I read about Alibaba, the boss of Alibaba, Jack Ma, and his wife. They bought a very expensive multi-million house in Singapore, and Singapore is Asia's the Alibaba's Asia regional center. I believe they purchased a CB building, multi-story building, and they're going to rebuild into one of the tallest building. I've seen the plan, a semicircle, one of the tallest building, about almost close to just more than 300 meters, long, high in Singapore. So this Jack Ma, and there's another rich guy is owner of ByteDance, TikTok, and apparently and a few of his manager or CEO, they also purchase property in Singapore, and I believe they're making Singapore as a TikTok's international headquarters. TikTok in Singapore. So obviously they purchased, they settling down in Singapore. So I mean, all this money coming, and plus many other mega rich Chinese, coming and settle down in Singapore. So obviously that has, to me, I think that's definitely propel Singapore's economy up and up, isn't it? I can go on top, and obviously I mean, obviously they like the fact that Singapore is it's the third financial center in the world, behind New York, London, then Singapore, and Singapore just overtaking Hong Kong as a third global financial center. And obviously, I read Singapore also the top places, top country, the easiest country to do business. And Singapore port is the second. Singapore container port is second busiest in the world, just behind Shanghai. And Singapore airport is, for many years, is the best airport in the world. Plus Singapore Airlines. I mean the list can. Keep on going. The government has got. Just off my script. The government has got. Singapore government has, because of political stability, they got long-term planning. They're not planning. For next 3 or 4 years for the election. Other countries like another party won the election, so or the plan is thrown in the bin. It start all over again. But Singapore provides political stability. And they got they can have long-term planning. Look at the Singapore airport. They're building the 5th runway. And they constantly improving Singapore airport. It's almost like a destination by itself. It was the highest waterfall, and people go take their do their wedding photo in Singapore airport. Another that this will really show that the Singapore government has got long-term planning. They're building a brand new container port right on the western side, western side of the Singapore island, called TUAS, TUAS. That container, when you complete it, will double the size of the current, the one in the current container port there. So, it will take, I believe, it'll take 10 or 15 years to complete. But when it's completed, will be the most efficient, completely automated container port in the world. Completely automated. You don't need a person drive the machinery to pick up the container. No, it's completely automated. Okay. So there you are. That is long-term planning, isn't it? They're looking at something like 30, 50 years ahead. Anyway, give the credit to the Singapore government for its long-term planning. Look at Singapore's housing. The multi-story housing by HDB, Housing Development Board. Apartments. Singapore's the only country achieving more than 90% home ownership in the world from such a small island of 730 square kilometer. You got to give credit to you got to give the credit to the Singapore government for the efficiency, for the productivity and the talent of the people. Yes, and okay. The next, also besides China's economic success of China, the economic success of the neighboring country, the Asian country, like the neighboring country like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand. They're all, they are all developing very, very, very fast. And most of this country, the entrepreneur or the wealthy, millionaire or billionaire, or they also sort of ethnic background, in Malaysia, I think it's 23 or 25% of the population are ethnic Chinese. In Indonesia, even though it's only 2-3%, or Thailand is about 10 or 15%. Right? But they're all successful businessmen. They have got a network, in Indonesian, many Indonesians actually live in Singapore. I mean, I remember went back to Singapore for holiday about 20 years ago. I read an article in a Voice magazine. Apparently, 1/4 of the richest family in Singapore, maybe the 100 richest, 1/4 of them are Indonesian Chinese. And I was so surprised when they got names like Budi and Michael, Hantaro, Tenato, Salim, Pengestu, Wujaja, Susanto. I mean, that's 20 years ago. But now, obviously, a lot of the rich, not just Indonesian Chinese or Malaysian Chinese, a lot of the locals, Malaysian, Indonesian, Thai, they do business in Singapore. I mean, a lot of them also like to have the children educated, go to university in Singapore. Singapore University, the National University of Singapore, and Nanyang Science and Technology University is world famous as well. I think Singapore University is one of the top 10, and Nanyang is within the top 30, I think. So anyway, and also remember Singapore, I read somewhere that almost close to 1 million Malaysian workers come into Singapore and work in Singapore every day, or some of them might have a PR or got a work permit, live in Singapore, but almost 1 million Malaysian citizens sort of work in Singapore. I mean, that's out of almost close to 6 million. On the top, there's a lot of other Asian working there as well. A lot of Filipino, Indonesian. You go to Orchard Road on Sunday, near Lucky Plaza. I mean, all the Filipino, mate, or workers, all hang around there, and also speaking in Tangara. So anyway, in conclusion, I'd like to, the main point that I want to do this YouTube is try to give a different perspective, different sort of narrative to the kind of narrative promoted by the Western media. Singapore get to where it is because of the British, because English language, because British government, British colonization, legal system. I mean, they completely ignore the population. I mean, Singapore population, the success of Singapore is due to its population. I think I read somewhere that the leader of Singapore, when it's separated from Malaysia, will say that, look, we might not have the resources of our neighbor country, but what we have is the talent of our people. The talent, the hierarchy, talent, adaptability. So, because basically, the population, 3/4 population in Singapore, Chinese background, they're similar to the people in South Korean, Japanese, or people in Taiwan or in mainland China, in Hong Kong, they're hardworking. I mean, you can't just say that Singapore's success because of strategic, geographical, strategic location. What about South Korea? They don't speak English. What about Japan? They don't speak English. Or in China, I mean, and yet they are successful. South Korea and Japan, Japanese economy still the third biggest economy in the world. Besides USA and China. I mean, South Korea is I think I'm among one of the top 10. Well, Singapore. The other point I'm trying to say to Singapore is one of the highest living standard. Why is that? Yeah, Singapore is like Switzerland. It's a financial center. So a lot of money from different European countries feel that Switzerland is safe to put the money in Switzerland. Well, Singapore is the same thing. I mean, a lot of money from Southeast Asia, from China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, even from India, USA, Australia, and European country. A lot of money now go to Singapore. I mean, I believe Singapore is taken over Switzerland. Well, why would Singapore is the third financial center in the world, besides New York and London? I mean, I don't know where Zurich is, but the fourth place is Hong Kong. But I would like to conclude. So that's the reason I want to counter the narrative that always provided by the Western media. Okay, they always try to avoid talk about the population of Singapore, which 3/4 of the population of Singapore is ethnic Chinese. Okay, well, I mean, obviously Singapore success is due to its multicultural, multiracial component. I mean, Chinese, Malays, Indians, and others, or they call it CMIO, Chinese, Malay, Indian, others, they live harmoniously, in Singapore. And they contribute the real success. The people in Singapore contribute the real success due to the hard work, due to the talent, due to the adaptability, the government's efficiency, productivity, long-term planning, and the government's always looking ahead. And it provides a safe, clean, green environment by the visionary leader. Right from Lee Kuan Yew to Goh Chok Tong to Lee Hsien Loong and now Lon Swong. The success of Singapore is belong to the people, the population, belong to people in Singapore. Okay? No one else. Okay. Okay. I'm sure Singapore in another 10 years will have Singapore, I believe, that is second highest living standard, just behind Luxembourg. I believe in another 10 years, Singapore will overtake Luxembourg. Singapore's population almost 5.8 or 5.9 million. Luxembourg has got a population of 650,000. So, and because of the reason I mentioned before, that's a tremendous. because of the success of Singapore as a country, as a government, many of the neighboring countries and China, Korea, Japan, they all like to put the money in a safe place. That's why Singapore's and the population, because of, I'm not emphasizing the ethnic Chinese population in Singapore, together with the Malays and the Indian and others, they have made Singapore a real success. Beside the Western narrative of only because of the English language, because of British, parliamentary democracy and all that, I mean, I can always come and tell you more democracy. Why India is not the most successful country? Then why England? Why England? UK? It's where the English language, where the Pommy language come from, the colonial language come from, and why they slid down on the scale. I mean, and the same thing. Why South Korea and Japan, and so as China, and even Taiwan, they English is not the main language in those countries, and yet those countries is among the top 10. China, South Korea, Japan, even Taiwan, which is a province of China, and Hong Kong, and I mean, they're all top of, one of the top country, beside some of the European country, and beside America and Canada and Australia, Anyway, I'm gonna finish here. Yep. Okay. I hope you have enjoyed this YouTube, and look, please subscribe. You haven't done it. I hope you like the content. It's I'm not, I'm not sort of 100% sure. Think that people will think that, well, maybe you're over dramatizing, the population, but the fact that the Western media, Western scholar, and so-called expert ignore that sort of make me I feel that they in fact they deliberately try to avoid mentioning the population in most of the YouTube, Anyway, please subscribe. I hope you have done this YouTube. Please subscribe and give me the thumb up. Please subscribe. I don't understand why my subscriber numbers still very low. So please thumb up and please make some comment. I mean, I'd love to hear from you. And this is just my opinion. I live in Australia for too long. So, I mean, I do go back to Singapore and meet my school friend, and from my school friend from Hua Zhong, and I've been going back to Singapore, and I've got family in Malaysia, Indonesia, and I go back there very often. So I keep in contact, But please give me some comments, because maybe I'm out of touch with the political situation, out of touch of the day-to-day life in Singapore, So I mean, I'm kind of provided from an ex-Singaporean perspective, from looking from the West, from Melbourne, from Australia, Anyway, I'll stop here, and please, if you like the content, please forward to your friends. If you think any of your friends will be interested, I'm determined to make the YouTube success. So I'm going to produce more and more frequently, so more interesting content. And if you look at the other YouTube that I have produced. I have, I've been a real estate property investor here in Melbourne, in Australia. So I have produced quite a number of YouTubes on building wealth, how to build wealth through property or real estate investment here in Australia. So please check it out. Okay. Good night. All the best. We'll talk to you next time.